Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Pezik Show. I am so excited today because my good friend Alicia Journey is here with me. And man, are we going to take you on a journey. Alicia, I love that your last name is Journey. How fitting is that? We're going to be talking about self-love. We're going to be talking about leadership. We're going to be talking about the impact and role modeling on our children and just all this craziness that is going on in the world right now. Where do we fit as women? Where do we fit as mothers? If you're not a woman and you're listening to this as a role model, as a parent, as a man, as a whoever you are, what's going to be our part that we can do to unite this world together? Because I think we can all agree that this is a time when we're disconnected. We are lost. We are confused. I know, Alicia, you and I were chatting earlier about there's a lot of fear-based leadership going on when you turn on the news or you listen to the radio, and it can be a scary time of what's going on right now. So before I get into chatting with Alicia, I want to let you know who she is and tell you a bit about her. So Alicia Journey is a United States Supreme Court attorney. She's a member of the California State Bar, graduated from Pepperdine School of Law in 2009 with her Juris Doctorate. I don't know what that means, but I'm assuming that means you were a smart cookie and did good in school. In the same year, she received a degree in dispute resolution from the world-renowned Stratus Institute in Dispute Resolution. Now, during law school, she worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office in their criminal division, focusing on sexual crimes against children. She was a prosecutor for the Riverside District Attorney's Office, specializing in domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, and elder abuse, and tried 34 trials from misdemeanors in 3 strike prison cases and attempted murders. Ooh, heavy stuff. We're going to talk about this. She spent time training law enforcement and investigating these crimes. Now, after going through her own divorce, she opened her own law practice where she focused on family and estate planning law. She's owned and operated this practice for over 7 years. She is a survivor herself of intimate partner abuse and sexual assault. Due to her experiences both personally and professionally, she started a nonprofit for this demographic called Beyond the Bruises. This foundation's mission is to create a one-stop shop for resources and assigns a team of professionals that will walk alongside survivors as they go through the process of healing to becoming self-empowered individuals who understand and operate in life with the understanding that what happened to them does not define them. Now, she ain't done. She's a conscious leadership development expert dedicated to helping leaders in their industry create focused strategies in order to make a greater impact, in order to affect real and lasting change. And we're going to talk about that too. You live in the beautiful Santa Barbara, where I met you at a Soul Success Summit. We spoke together, and you've got 2 beautiful children. And I love that the last line of your bio says you are dedicated to equality and social justice. Ooh, sister.
Amen.
So glad you're here.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Like, wow. So you've been around the block and back, both professionally and personally. And, you know, we want to talk about some of the most messed up stuff that we see that happen to women and children and just the stuff going on in this world. That's hard, I would imagine, to A, be a survivor of that, B, see other women and children and people go through that. And tell me a bit about, because you can read these words on a paper, but when you tell me or you tell the listeners, they're going to just really get it. Like, why do you do the work that you do, and where did that stem from? Because what's the name of your, it's the Love
Love leader.
Love leader. So yeah, where did that start from? Or tell me about that.
So it's interesting. There's so many different ways to like, where does it start? At birth, right? But
Mhm.
really, so the Love Leader was born out of about a year and a half ago. There was a mudslide here in Santa Barbara, California, and it came and destroyed the entire city of Montecito, and 23 people died in it. And I almost died that night and was saved that night, I believe, by a divine, for a divine purpose and by a divine source. So the kids and I survived, but all of our worldly goods were washed away and we were searched and rescued out. And from that, I've had a lot of, I would call them spiritual awakenings throughout my life, but this is the one that rocked me to my core, because the PTSD, the post-traumatic stress disorder that happens, the trauma that happens, because I jumped right back in as my savior complex, how it always is, let me try to help people. And basically 6 months after that, I ended up so sick. I nearly died. My organs started failing. And it really was, I just was in, the impact that stress and trauma has on your body and your health is, you cannot understate it. And we're living in a world of constant stress. And so when I got to get to a place where I literally could not work anymore, and I had to sit and deal with my grief and the trauma that I had gone through myself personally. I've been going to therapy. I've sustained childhood abuse, sustained intimate partner abuse. I'd like to talk about the difference between the two, because I think that's a huge
Yeah. Yeah.
sexual assault. And then, I'd gone through cancer, but then I also, as a prosecutor and the type of attorney I was, I didn't realize how much that had impacted me. And then the final straw for me was this mudslide. Literally, you're being searched and rescued out in this big tank, and you're looking at bodies on the freeway, and I tried to compartmentalize it and stuff it back in, and it was like, that's it. All and traumas, if you don't deal with them at the time, they just stack up on each other. You have to not only emotionally clear that, but they have to physically clear from your body, because traumas imprint on you on a cellular level. And handle that then, right? So there's a lot to unpack there, but to answer your question, it caused me, I was forced to really, really, really get clear on, I've had a couple near-death experiences, and one, I have epilepsy, and so I had a grand mal seizure that, I was out of my body, and it was, okay, it's time to go, and I was like, but then there was this knowing that my kids wouldn't be okay without me, right? So then I came back, and that's changed my life. But then the most recent one was the mudslide, where I had a divine voice. I was about ready to open the door to go outside to see what all this noise was at 3:00 in the morning from the mudslide. I heard a male's voice, "Stop, don't open that door." It froze me in my tracks. I'm looking around. There's obviously no male in my house. When I looked outside our window, thinking that it was just black of night, it was actually, 5 feet above my head, mud flow. So it almost took my life. So after being forced physically, finally, to stop and go, what is my divine purpose here? It was really, I'd worked in all the systems, right? I worked in the legal system. I'd worked in the political system. I worked on Capitol Hill for almost 4 years. I worked in the nonprofit world, thinking, okay, well, this is, I want to serve people. This is where it's at. No, that's just another system. And so I had worked in all these systems, and I've worked with the marginalized, I would say, of our society. And then we know what's going on right now in our political climate, a lot of division. It doesn't matter what side of the road you're at, there's division, right?
Yes.
And I was saying, I'm here to, my purpose is to make sure that we all know that we are all one. There's like a
Mm.
I am you, I am you. I
Mhm.
am that I am. And that's, one of the things that in the Bible, God says to Moses at the burning thing, people don't realize that what that really means is I am that I am. Everything you look at, that's what God is. I am God and you are God. Like we are connected. There's a oneness. So there
Mm.
that happened, and it was what's happening is we don't have love-based leadership, which is abundant. It's that oneness, it's that collaborative, inclusive leadership. What we have is fear-based leadership, which is division. It creates division. It creates one over the other, power over instead of power within. Well, no, I've seen it all not work from
Yeah.
every system that we can go, and
Yeah.
I've dabbled in the corporate world. I don't have as much experience, but I know it's not working there either. Um, so what happened? And so I just waited for downloads, truthfully. And that's where the love leader came into to being, is through all of that. But it only came through quiet, quieting the mind so the heart can listen.
Yeah. So how did you do that? Because we are so easily distracted, being hit with so many messages. And even like you said about, feeling kind of alone, like you're like, we are one. It doesn't matter what side you're on. I think a lot of people, when they're either dealing with trauma, whether that's from their family, from an abusive partner, from an emotionally abusive, physically abusive, maybe an abusive boss, like when there's something not right that's shaking up your world, I think there is a lot of fear to talk about that and to share that. And then we're being hit with all these messages about you got to be black or white or left or right, or people are so opinionated now. It's so easy to feel siloed, like you are alone. It is just me with my trauma and nobody understands. We hear that a lot of times, right? You don't understand. People don't understand. That people feel so victimized that they won't maybe go to that quiet space to go, what do I believe? Do I feel one? Do I feel connected? So how did you kind of sit in that quiet to give yourself that like little bit of love and space and time?
Well, in all honesty, when you're forced to do it, and that'll do it for you, right? But
Yeah.
what I did is I just threw in. I just knew that there had to be more because
Mm.
of just this knowing, this intuitive knowing, and that's one thing I think we have. Um, we have so much inside of us. The answers really are inside of us, but because the noise is so loud and so buzzy all the time, I just feel
Yep.
like this is a constant white noise. We don't know that the answers are inside us, or when they're inside of us, we go, okay, we get an inspired thought, like this is how it needs to be, or this is where I should be. And
Yep.
then ego kicks in and tries to protect us because it's fearful. And then separating what is intuition and what is instinct. Instinct is fear, ego, fear based. But I want to go back and I want to give it a real answer, because I could philosophize on this for a very long time. But what I did was I knew that there had to be more. I knew I was hopeless and helpless, and I was at my rock bottom. And I knew that I had a choice because I have dealt with severe depression, and I have dealt with, I wouldn't call it being suicidal, but I would call it suicidal ideations, where you're just going, I just don't want to do this anymore. This is just painful.
Too hard.
And I knew in that moment it was like a rocky moment where you're on the mat and you're like, do I stay down or do I get up? And I have two beautiful reasons to get back up, which are my kids, right?
Yep.
I chose, I'm going to get back up. I'm going to get back up, but I'm not going to fight the same way. So I started doing research, and I looked inspirational podcasts, and that took me down just a beautiful road. And just researching spirituality, not from a confined religious box, like religiosity, but spirituality.
Yeah.
And that, right? And what
Yeah.
does that mean for me?
Yeah.
And I started breaking out of the boxes of, I have a family that's I would call it very, very religious. And so when I just made the decision to be spiritual, I knew that I would lose members of my family, which I did, but it created this openness in me that was like, I was like, just like a receptacle for just beautiful, I just feel like my heart just started opening up on levels that I didn't even know it could. And
Yeah.
I started dropping, instead of only trying to operate from my mind and my brain, because logic is what we are told is the way to go and keep us safe. All of a sudden my heart's open, and now I can actually think clearer. So
Yeah. So it's like, it's the thing that nobody wants to do, which is we want to fix, we want to go, we want to think, we want to plan, we want a to-do list, and what I'm hearing from you is like, it's the opposite. It's like, give yourself quiet, give yourself space. Maybe it's something as simple as like, go for a walk in the sunshine and leave, the music, or leave the phone, leave it behind, and just go and tune into nature and listen to your internal voice and your internal chatter, right?
exactly. And it's so funny because I'm in the middle of a cross country move. And
Yeah.
I know because I have been called there, and there's a variety of reasons that this is the very best decision I can make for myself and my kids. But it is scary AF,
Yeah.
because you cannot have courage without fear. Like, you
Yeah.
really just can't. So I've been having to do these mindset shifts. Like, I was so zen and so peaceful, and so I call it like, I just like grace, just like trusting. And then now that this move is really, it's like it's impending and everything's starting to happen, I find myself super fear based. I'm like, ooh, are the funds there? Is this the right decision? How are we doing it?
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because every time that I do start there, I become sick. I go straight back into my depression of, I just don't want to do this anymore. It's like clockwork. But
Mm.
the way I get out of it is I ask for divine intervention, and I say, I choose to see this with love instead of fear. Help me.
Mm.
And then it is finding those quiet times. Doesn't matter. I mean, people talking out here, here listening, or have children, or they have spouses, or they have employees, or employers. you know it's you are such a better person once you take that time away. So I take that time and I say meditate, but meditate does not mean cross your legs and be a yogi.
Yeah.
Meditate could be go on a walk, it could be put on Shakira and dance, it could be whatever brings you joy. So you got to shift from fear. You can't be in fear if you are in joy. So find that joy. It clears you. And then when you're in that place, and when you're there, because you feel it, and it's a physical feeling. And from experience, it's a physical feeling. You're like, I don't feel like my chest is tightening. I don't feel like my stomach is doing flip-flops. Like, you don't feel those physical feelings. You're there. And then you get creative solutions to things that felt impossible to solve. Like, a little tiny example was, I was feeling like I was about to just burst out of stress. And I just said, I'm taking the day off. I don't know, I'm going to have to cancel things and, not follow up on the things. But I said, I'm just spending my time with myself. Because that, for me, if I don't have that time with myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And my daughter was performing in this performance the next day, and they needed her to have her music ready for her performance already downloaded. And I'm like, well, it's not on iTunes. It can't be on YouTube. Like, I had no idea how we were going to make it work. It's a little stuff that can stress you out too, right?
Yeah.
And the pressure's on you as the parent. And I was like, I have no idea. But after spending that day of just self-care and, drinking the tea and doing the walks and having quiet, or, looking at some, watching, for me, it was inspirational and spiritual documentaries. I woke up at like 5 o'clock and I'm like, oh, you just play the YouTube on one phone and record it on a voice memo on the other phone. There, done. And it worked. I was like, but I could never have gotten there if I hadn't given myself space to
Yes.
clear.
That's it. That's it. And I love that you're talking about like some of the things you said that I wrote down, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. I don't even know if she realized that she's saying how good this is. Like you said, you can't have courage without fear.
Yeah.
And I believe that too. And I think there's a lot of messaging that's like, face your fears and don't be afraid. And if you're in the right space and doing the right thing, you'll never feel fear. And I call BS on that too, because every time that I know I step out of my comfort zone, I'm scared AF, as you say, right? It's like I am afraid. And that fear and those experiences are so unique to the person and to the people listening.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you feel that unruliness and that unrest if you're not stretching yourself. So you have to go and do it,
Right.
but don't expect it to not feel uncomfortable. That fear, that uncomfortableness can be normal, but then you don't stay there, right? Because you can't have fear and joy existing at the same time. So you've got to either give yourself that download or dance or shake it out. And I just love that mindset flip to be like, all right, fear. I see you. I hear you. You're there.
Yeah.
But now what am I going to do about that? I'm not going to stay there. It's like acknowledge it, but don't stay there.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I find, I also, if you can't tell from my bio, I can get bored a little easy. And so I might be a little bit more than the average bear, just like, for me, life is just so big and full, and like it's meant to be lived, and like challenging ourselves and expanding ourselves is part of this process. Like that's why we're put on this planet.
Yes.
And grow. But the things like I always look at it like I'm jumping from one cliff to the next.
Yeah.
And it's not like I do trust that there's another cliff on the other side, but that doesn't mean that the decision to jump isn't like knowing I need to jump. It doesn't mean that jump isn't so scary.
Right.
But knowing it has to happen for your next, part of your journey.
And building in those quiet moments or those self-care days, or maybe if you can't do a whole day, it's like a self-care afternoon, a self-care evening, like, because it just takes me back to your story in the beginning where, I mean, your body was shutting down. Like your body was saying like, no more, sister. Like, I'm going to take you off this planet. If you're going to abandon those 2 children because you're so stressed out, like, and I'm assuming, or maybe I shouldn't assume, but what I'm thinking is that, as you said, it was like trauma from growing up, trauma from your marriage, trauma from the work that you did. Like it was just unresolved trauma that was just going boom, 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 boom.
Yep.
That it was like your body was just like done. Too much weight, right?
Yep. That's exactly right. And it's, and I think that people, one thing I want to bring up, and it might be controversial, but I choose to do nothing. I choose not to do medicine. And I've gone on medicine when I'm in crisis, but I choose because I've seen it personally. Medicine can harm you, but I think that's always going to be a personal choice.
Totally. Yep.
One of the things I want to emphasize is that people say just go to therapy. Well, I was in therapy for 4.5 years before this thing happened, and I still almost died because of the buildup of stress. So talk therapy is helpful. but there's something called EMDR, which is basically, it's a bilateral, it works with both your temporal lobes and bilateral stimulation, and helps you work through that trauma and rewires the story. It's a plasticity and a neural pathway rewiring. You know, be it getting a dance, be it yoga, you got to move that trauma out of your body. So one of the things that just want to drop in there for the listeners is that if you're not feeling like you, sometimes talk therapy can get you stuck in the story. So it's not always the only answer. Sometimes you have to integrate a number of things. So yes, just want to make sure that we touch on that a little bit.
I love that message of like freedom. Like that's what came out for me. Like, it's like, don't again think that like I have to go to therapy, I have to take this medication, I have to do, the doctor says I should do A, B, and C, and that's what I should do. Like, again, it kind of goes back to that intuitive, your own voice, your own thoughts, your own, like, what is going to heal me? That can be so different for each, and like you said, and maybe it is medication. Like, it's so individualized to the person that it's like, open your mind and open your heart to that. Like, how to heal yourself, what you need, and you have the permission to go and do that. And one thing that came up for me too that I was thinking about is, I was like, how like ironic is it that like a search and rescue team had to like come and like, like sometimes we think like we hit those like enough is enough moments where it's like for me, when I share my stories about almost being wiped out by a car, but for you, it's like a search and rescue team had to come in, and like that shook up so many things in your life too. Like, it's like, there's so many things that we could be doing before we hit that enough is enough moment, or our body shuts down, or the search and rescue team is saving us from our disaster, or, like, I guess what I'm going back to is I know a lot of people say, well, sometimes these strategies are so simple. Like, you want me to go dance, you want me to take a self-care day, you want me to go do this kind of therapy. And you're like, yeah, if you don't, what's the alternative?
Right.
Sickness,
I feel
crisis,
like
right?
part of the reason why I'm here as well is to spread the message of freedom. And part of this message of freedom is also the freedom to so I always look at it as like the jail cell, and then literally the key is like sitting on the other side. Like, you can reach and you can grab it, but you feel locked in there by your family system, by culture, by a relationship, by doctors are telling you to do this, or somebody's telling you have to, this is what success looks like, or this is how you raise kids. You literally just reach over, you say, oh, screw this, and I reach over and I lock the key, and I'm like, or or you're in a cage and you're meant to fly, but you'll adapt. We'll adapt to anything. We'll adapt to those four walls of that prison cell or to that bird's cage. But does that mean that that's real life? No. And so the freedom part of that is what I would love to spread the message is, like, you got to a crisis point, I got to a crisis point. I feel like right now in our nation, we're at a crisis point. Like, what if we could give people the freedom to live the life that they were meant to live, which is filled with joy, not saying it's missing of pain and sorrow. Like, that's part of life. But what we give people permission now and the freedom now to live that way before they hit their crisis point? That's what I love.
100%. And what do you think needs to happen to be able to shift that? Is it like an individual thing, all of us doing our part, or what's like the biggest thing that needs to happen to start that change?
I think I always say it's the little ripples that bring in the tide. And so it's that oneness. I look at it like the image that I got that was part of the Love Leader download that I received was our world, and it was dark, but there's light, like a little light, and then it connects to the other light, and then connects to another light, and all of a sudden the whole world lit up. So that, be your own light worker, and connect with other light workers, and then together we light up the world. And it takes one
Mm.
person. Like the movement, Martin Luther King was one person, Jesus Christ one person. You keep going on. It's just, it takes one person.
Mm-hmm.
Be that person to yourself first,
Yes. Yes.
which means that you're able to give but also receive, which is
Mm.
can be difficult. Then recognize the oneness in that person that you see on the street struggling, or even in the small stuff. It doesn't have to be huge. And then you give yourself the freedom to find your destiny and your purpose. And then we light up the world one person at a time, and then we're doing it together, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So is there anything in your day that you like must do to like be your own light, get those downloads? Like for me, it sounds so silly, but it's like I need to move. Like I love, people are always like, oh, you exercise because you want to like look good. I'm like, no, I exercise because it puts this thing where it needs to be every day.
Yeah.
Like it could be something huge, it could be something simple. Is there like something you can't live without or you must do every day to shine your light?
I call them my non-negotiables, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my non-negotiables are, I have to have quiet time, and sometimes it's 15 minutes, and sometimes I am like super blessed, and it's like a day. But I have to have quiet time because I have to tune into me.
Yep.
And then I have a spiritual practice, and then I journal and I free write. So I ask for guidance on a particular thing, and I free write. That gives me a lot of answers, and then I have to move. And that is, I unfortunately, things are just challenging right now. But what that means sometimes is just a 15-minute walk, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then people with children can appreciate that. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, that's great, but no, my kids are 100% aware that I need my alone time, or you're not going to want to have this mommy. And they know that what that mommy is, because we're all human. But my kids know when I say I need to be alone, they respect it, because I have imprinted on them that is a boundary that
100%.
I have to take. And it's so cool now because they're 12 and 7, and my 12-year-old's like, I need alone time. And
Yes.
I just want to do it myself. And I'm like, amen. Like, so
Yes.
those are some of my non-negotiables. But doesn't mean that you fail if you don't get it done every day. But when I do it, I feel a lot better.
Yeah. And I think that's raising emotionally responsible children, when we can show them that we need our time, you can have your time. Like setting that boundary is a healthy thing.
Yeah.
Because the same, my little guy, he's 5, and it just made me think of that. He says the same thing. He's like, I just want some alone time, Mom. And I'm like, oh my God, buddy, like, what do you need? Like, and the fact that he's learned that the same from us, or he knows, like, people say, how do you work from home and have children? I'm like, my 5-year-old knows when mommy's working. When she's on a call, I don't ask mom questions. But as soon as mom's off that call, he has my 110% attention. Like he knows those boundaries of when he has me and when he doesn't. And people are like, oh, don't you have mom guilt? And I'm like, no, because when I'm working, I'm 100% working. When I'm with him, I'm 100% with him. When I'm alone time, I'm 100% with myself, right? And it's like, you need those boundaries, because when you try to give to everyone all the time, it's like you said, when you're like, you said to your kids, you don't want the mom that's going to be showing up if I don't have my mental time and my sanity time and my just like alone time. And I think as a society, people don't want to do that, right? Women put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be with our kids 24/7 and to be doing everything and managing everything. And, as you realize firsthand, like it will lead to a crash if you are not taking that time for yourself.
And one thing I also want to bring up as part of this is like, I'm not perfect, and I'm still like, it's like a, it's like a practice. You know what, there's uh, it's the end of the school year. My daughter's graduating. We're moving. Like, oh, I have been not holding up my end of the bargain to myself, which means I haven't, been in integrity with myself, which means that I have showed up as not the great mom because the mom guilt coats in, and it's like I have to be at every event. So, but then what the practice is recognizing, oh, that's why I'm behaving this way.
Yes.
Right. And then you just shift it back. So it's not about perfection. It's about awareness.
I love that. It's like, I always tell people, it's like same energy. You can either use that energy to beat yourself up, or you can use that energy to go, okay, noted. Like, why'd that happen? Or what am I going to do to make that different? It's like taking it from that negative voice to that positive voice, because we're going to mess up. Like you said, nobody is perfect. Nobody hits their morning routine 100% of the time, or daytime routine, or we're human. We have errors. We make faults. We do things that we shouldn't. We say things that we shouldn't. Yeah. But it's if you're able to unpack that and go, wait a second, where'd that come from? What do I need to do to change? That it's like you're your own. You can be your own teacher.
Yeah, I always look at it like, I have two analogies. It's like those thoughts that come up that are like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, or I should be doing this, or it's like you're a shepherd and one of the sheep, sees a pretty little flower that it wants to go eat, and you're like, no, sweetie, come back over here, come back with the flock, like this is where we're going, like, and instead of treating it like, you stupid, why did you do that, and like beating the sheep up for just kind of naturally going off and straying because it saw something sparkly. Or it's like when you have a child, a toddler, and you're just kind of like, you're like, hey, look, I get that you really, really, really want to go like take that paint set and like color all over the walls, and basically do self-destructive things. But not what we're doing right now. And like just like you're teaching your brain and your mind and your thoughts, which are and emotions, like no. So when things don't go the way that you planned them, or it's not perfect, then you're not gonna like whip that child. You're gonna be frustrated because the paint's on the wall, or you're not gonna slaughter the sheep. You're gonna just go, all right, let's like that is what it was.
Yep.
All we have is moving forward, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love just the mindset shifts that you're giving people to just look at their day to day differently. So many times we just task through and blow through all the things we need to do, and we get in bed and we're exhausted, and there's never that self-reflection. And I just love that you're raising that awareness around just that self-reflection piece, that self-care piece, that mindset piece, like all of that is such a needed message that, it's like when we can take care of ourselves and we're putting out goodness into the world, that will stimulate more connection, more unity.
That's exactly the thing. I think that hits the nail on the head more than anything. Is that I feel like my number one responsibility is if I'm connected with myself and I am that patient person that's not flipping people off because they cut me off, or mad at the person with 15 items in a 12 at the grocery store. If I am connected with self, then I can be more gracious, which allows for more connection, which allows for the ripple to bring in the tide. So that is like the one thing that we can all do to a world of change, right?
I love that. Sometimes it's the simplest concepts that make not the simplest to do, because there's a lot of work to do that, but the simplest concept that if you do it and you commit to it, you really can see that ripple effect across the entire world, the entire nation, the entire planet. And it goes back to, you have kids, I have kids, the listeners have kids. It's like we're role modeling for them how to do it. and we're changing future generations and the way that they see the world. And to me, that's, again, scary, but empowering at the same time.
Yeah.
That it's like, we can be the change. So they can find you at www.Alicia Journey, AliciaJourney.com. Don't worry if you're driving. I will put that in the show notes so you will have it there. And oh my goodness, you've got something exciting launching in the next week. You have an online course.
Yes.
And you've teamed up with Mary Allison, who I also met at the Soul Success Summit. She's a contributor, to your course.
Yes.
And she's a mental health expert. And you being this amazing leader, her being this mental health expert, your expertise, her expertise, it's all around divorce, right? And everything you need to know. Again, scary, making a change, but necessary. And I was like checking it out, and you sent it to me, and you talk about mindset and the legalities and what to do with children and how do you speak to your children about it, the custody, the division of assets, the client and attorney collaboration. Like, every question you can have, you answer. And tell me a bit about that, because I feel like when people are in an uncomfortable situation where they know they need to walk away from, they won't because of fear. Yeah. And going back to that theme, I feel like you're empowering people by giving them the answers to go, you know what? You don't got to stay in this stressful situation. You don't got to stay in something that just doesn't, maybe it's not an abuse but it's like something that just doesn't serve you anymore. Right. You don't got to stay there. So is that what kind of this course came from, or where did this course kind of come about from?
Yeah, for we had both been through divorce, and I was a family law attorney for a number of years. A lot of divorces, and I've gone through my own. And we were just talking about it, and it was like, what if there was just like a different way to do it? And then we started talking, and I was like, for my experience, it's like clients just were so scared, paralyzed. They just didn't act and then your reptilian part of the brain takes over, your amygdala, and you can't think clearly. But so what this course is designed to do is to give people, the key to their own prison, and let themselves be the bird that flies away. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be abuse, just that feeling of stuckness.
Yeah.
Like, I know it has to be better than this. And so giving them the legal, the financial education for before, during, and after, and then also the mental health mindset, the tricks and trades that are going to get you through the process. And then, so when you go and collaborate with an attorney, and you go through mediation, if you're in a mediated state that requires mediation, you are going in with information.
Yeah.
And you got tricks and tools, and you're also saving time, money, emotional resources, because you're prepared. And this is for not just you're thinking about it. This could be for any stage. You're going to learn during whatever stage you're at, and then also any state. So it's not state specific. And also another thing people tend to ask is, what if this is my second marriage? Well, it does not matter.
No judgment. Yeah.
And so I'm excited because the course is called Doing Divorce Different. And that's because that's what we're all about, and that's what my whole life is all about. It's like, hey, it's broken. Let's try to fix it, and let's not try to fix it the same way, or just put a Band-Aid on it. Let's do it different.
I love that. And that's going to be at www.doingdivorcedifferent.com. So that's going to be, it's not launched yet, but you can still go check it out. And I feel like I could just talk to you forever. Okay, one more thing, and then I promise I'm done. It just made me think about those questions that I want to acknowledge, that you're not alone, because we all feel those moments where we go, is this happiness? Like, is this success? Is this what love and marriage is supposed to feel like? Like, even if it's like, is this what parenting is supposed to be? Like, and it could just be that we're again, like misaligned, not taking time for ourselves, not loving on ourselves, stressed out, overwhelmed. Maybe we are in a bad marriage. Like, so unique to everyone, but that's the thing that you can't sweep under the rug, I think, right? That's what I'm hearing from you, Alicia, is like when those questions come up to go like, is this it? Is this what it's supposed to feel like?
Yeah.
Instead of just carrying on. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, sorry. I was just saying, when those questions come up, sometimes the answer is it's just a shift I need to do internally, or I just need to shift my priorities around. So sometimes it's not, oh, this is a horrible marriage.
Yeah.
You're encouraging divorce. I'm like, no, I'm encouraging people to listen to their own instincts and guts, and then empowering them with the tools for the freedom. But it's I think, and also in telling our stories, we are letting people know, no, you are not alone. And I think that is the most powerful and courageous part. The first time I started sharing my story is so scary, but the more I do it, the more I hear people say, oh my gosh, that was me. And just hearing you say that makes me feel not alone.
Not so alone. That's that ripple effect that you're talking about.
Totally.
I love it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and having this open discussion about all this amazing stuff. That was very courageous of you to just come on and share that with me. So I thank you for doing that.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. So gang, you can find Alicia at www.aliciajourney.com. You can also find her Doing Divorce Different at www.doingdivorcedifferent.com and check her out. She has a wealth of knowledge. If you have follow-up questions or things you're afraid to talk about, right? You may not come on and be like, hey, Lisa, I think I want to get a divorce. I think I need a change. I think I need this. There's no judgment. I will put all that stuff in the show notes. So reach out to her. I think we kind of hammer it out on this podcast that the worst thing you could do is stay in that stress, stay feeling stuck, stay feeling like you're alone and there's no hope for you. We've shown you that that's not true. We love you. We are connected. We are here for you. And we want to get you the resources that you need if you know that it's time to make a change. So thank you for tuning in to the Lisa Pezik podcast, and we'll see you again next time.